Welcome to Fazza Love Poem. Subscribe now. He lived among stars, not the ones in the sky, but the ones that burned in the eyes of the world, watching him. Every step he took glittered with attention. Every word he spoke echoed through gold. Yet behind the crown, behind the cameras, behind the endless applause, silence waited for him. At the edge of every night, the desert stretched before him, wide and faithful, but even it could not answer the ache that grew beneath his royal calm. He had everything: the throne, the world, the name that turned whispers into worship, and yet he had nothing that felt real. His soul wandered through corridors of light, unseen, untouched, longing for someone who could look past the shimmer and see the man beneath it all. He often stood at the palace window at dawn, watching the horizon blush, wondering if somewhere out there beyond the dunes and duty, someone was waiting to see him, not his fame but his truth. He carried loneliness like a jewel, polished, beautiful, hidden. People bowed before him, spoke of honor and destiny, yet none dared to ask how his heart beat. His smile belonged to the kingdom, his silence to himself. The desert winds would whisper old secrets, and sometimes he'd answer, just to feel heard. The stars above seemed close, yet distant, like every face that adored him from afar. Nights were filled with poetry, but none written for him. And then, one evening, beneath a quiet sky painted in silver, he saw her, not approaching with awe, not trembling with recognition, but standing still, as if she had known him long before titles were born. Her eyes held no reflection of his name, no trace of power's glow, only calm understanding, like the moon watching over restless waves. In that single glance, he felt something he hadn't known in years: peace. She didn't see a prince. She saw a man who had forgotten what it meant to be seen. Their first words were simple, almost ordinary, yet he felt eternity between them. She spoke with ease, her voice like a soft wind carrying the scent of rain across dry dunes. For the first time he didn't have to measure his breath or weigh his words. She asked about his dreams, not his duties. She laughed without fear, and her laughter wrapped around him like a prayer. The palace, the crown, the weight of lineage, all of it faded when she looked at him. Her gaze saw straight through the gold and touched the stillness within. It was unsettling, almost holy, to be known without effort. He had spent his life shining for others, but now, in her quiet company, he learned what it meant to glow without trying. The desert air grew warmer around them, as if the earth itself recognized the long-awaited meeting. Two souls that had wandered alone through lifetimes, finally finding home in each other's light. He began to see beauty differently. The gems that once decorated his halls now seemed pale beside the spark in her eyes. The poetry he once wrote for show turned softer, truer, touched by something sacred. She never asked to be part of his world. She only asked him to be present in her. They would walk through the desert at dusk, silence between them more powerful than words. Sometimes she would stop and look at the horizon, her expression calm, timeless, as if she could see beyond this life. And in those moments he realized what it meant to be seen, not for what you are, but for who you have always been. Her love did not seek his crown, it sought his soul, the part of him that even he had buried beneath expectation. Every time she smiled, a piece of his loneliness melted into light. For the first time the prince felt small, not in weakness but in wonder. He watched her with reverence, the way she moved through the world, without fear, her grace unspoken, her beauty unperformed. In her he saw reflection, not admiration. She never bowed, never chased, never tried to fit into the mold of royalty. Her silence was her crown, her heart, her kingdom. She spoke truth with kindness, and every truth she gave him became a mirror, showing him who he truly was. He learned that strength wasn't in control, but in surrender, that love wasn't loud but steady. She never promised forever, yet every moment with her felt infinite. When he held her hand, he felt the pulse of something ancient, a rhythm older than thrones, older than fame. The moonlight wrapped around them like silk, and he thought, this is what it means to be alive, not in front of the world, but beside the one who sees your soul as a universe of its own. The palace began to feel different, quieter, kinder, softer in its edges. Even the guards noticed how his eyes carried peace. Instead of pressure, he no longer sought applause. He sought stillness. He wrote less for fame and more for feeling. His poetry no longer spoke of crowns and victories, but of mornings that began with her voice, nights that ended in shared silence. She never told him how to rule, yet her presence taught him everything about grace. With her, power felt meaningless. Without her, love felt impossible. He began to understand that devotion is not about grand gestures, but about gentle ones, waiting, listening, being. When she looked at him, she didn't see the future king of a nation. She saw the boy who once dreamed beneath the stars, and in her gaze that boy smiled again. Free, simple, human, the desert witnessed their love, not through spectacle, but through silence. Some nights they sat together beneath the stars, saying nothing, letting the universe speak for them. The wind carried her scent, the sand shimmered like gold dust beneath their feet, and time seemed to forget its duty. He realized that love, the real kind, doesn't ask to be seen, it simply exists, sacred, still, eternal. She told him once that fame is a mirage, and he believed her. He had chased many illusions, but only her truth quenched his thirst. The world would always see him as the prince, but in her heart he was just a man, learning how to love, and that was enough. He no longer cared if songs were written about him. Her presence was his poem, her silence, his prayer, her smile, his home. There were moments when doubt tried to return, when duty called louder than desire, when the world demanded he choose between the crown and the heart. But she never fought for him, she waited. Her faith in him was quiet, steady, like the moon refusing to fade even when clouds tried to hide it. He found himself praying, not for strength, but for humility, to deserve the kind of love that asks for nothing but truth. She reminded him that love isn't a rebellion against destiny. It is destiny, written in ways the world may never understand. And so he stayed, not as a ruler, but as a believer. Every sunrise became a reminder that she was not a passing dream, but the light itself. With her he didn't have to be remembered by history. He only had to be remembered by her. And in the quiet end of his journey, he finally understood what all the crowns and diamonds could never teach. That love doesn't need witnesses to be eternal. It doesn't need to be declared. It only needs to be felt. When she looked at him, he saw his soul reflected, clear and endless, like dawn resting on still water. Her presence completed what fame could never fill, the longing to be known. Truly, the world might forget their names, but their hearts would remember the meeting. Two souls who found each other across time and titles, beyond fame, beyond flesh. As the last stars faded and the first light broke across the desert, he whispered softly, "You saw me," and the wind carried her answer, not in words but in warmth. For love like theirs was never meant for the world's eyes. It was meant for the space between two souls, unseen, eternal, divine.